marketing, sales pipelines, construction, creative production.
Hello, Sisi.
Muted. That would help if I unmuted.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Siske. All right. Good to have you.
Yes, looking forward to the chat.
Yes.
All right, Siske. All right.
There's an echo going on.
Feedback. Yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon to everyone. I can see we've got some visitors already. Welcome. Hello, Ndat. Hello, Butumel.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Any feedback? Okay. Let's do it. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Okay. I'm trying to sort out the feedback problem.
Okay. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Okay. I'm trying to sort out the feedback problem.
Okay.
What is this feedback? All right. We just welcome those people that have joined us on Zoom and on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining. All right. We just welcome those people that have joined us on Zoom and on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining.
Are you going to dial or not?
Hi, Prophet.
Hey, Luba, Ugeni.
Ndingenile tata.
Good to see you, man.
Sokuliswa le machini yam kodwa ke sethi yalunga.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yandiva kakuhle.
Ndiva kakuhle, yes.
I'm trying to eliminate there's this echo.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it seems like it's sorted now. Now this is Keneiloe, and Sisi Nangu Lubabalo. So you both of you are our guests today, and you don't know one another. I hope I'm right, but I'm sure from now on you will know one another.
Yes, certainly. Yes, certainly. Hi, Keneiloe.
Hi. Good afternoon. Lovely to meet you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm so thrilled to have both of you today. And because I think there's a lot of people who have an interest in both specializations. And I got quite a number of messages. A friend of mine said, hey, I've always heard about this thing called, supply chain management, logistics. I want to know that. Other people want to know about, spine injury specialization. Those are big words. We just want to break it all down today so that everybody can be on the same wavelength. So I'd like to welcome you so much for taking your time off this afternoon, and thank you for taking your time off this afternoon and joining us. It's really a hot day in Joburg. I don't know, Cape Town. Cape Town.
It's a little bit cool. It's a bit cloudy as well, but it's not hot.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually in Joburg yesterday. It's quite hot up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's hot here. We're cooking, Mrs. Keneiloe. All right.
Yes, no, it's very hot.
It's very, very hot. Yeah. Other people will join in as we go. We're just going to take a few minutes just to, maybe a few, not a lot of minutes, just to wait for people to join. Others are joining on Facebook because we are also live on Facebook. And so we'll just give them a few more minutes so that they can get ready and we can also get ready.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you need to get a glass of water or something to drink, feel free to do that.
Okay.
Whilst we're still waiting for people to join. Yeah. And others are going to be asking maybe some questions on Facebook. So we'll keep track of both platforms. Just want to check if Facebook is live. Okay, I can see that Sinosia Abaitu, Sia Jodwana and Sia Noia are already watching on Facebook. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. All right, so we're just waiting for other people to join. We just give each other a few minutes, and then we're going to start with our guests. I really like to thank you so much for joining. I can see there's Gilibukhile, welcome. All right. Thank you for joining. Galaxy S10. Unfortunately, I can't see your name. You can see there's Ritabile joining. Welcome. Thank you. Buitumelo has been, I think Buitumelo was the first one to join. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome, sis. Thank you so much for joining. And others keep joining as we go on. I'd like to encourage you all to just, if you've got questions, prepare those questions and write them either on Facebook or on here on this platform, the Zoom platform, those of you who are here. All right, I think we can start now. I think we can start. We've got everybody here, and others will catch us on the way. I know some people are still at home having a Sunday lunch. Churches are open, beaches are opened, you know, parks are open, so people may be on their way home from that to come and watch this this favorite session for Sunday afternoons. Let me take this time just to welcome everybody again, those that have joined us on Facebook and those that are joining us on Zoom. I'd like to take this time to really again just thank you for gracing us with your presence. We've got great conversations that are gonna take place today, and so I'd like to take this time just to say this is a moment of insight and growth. This is what our session is about. It really is about to create an insight in the mind of someone who's listening there, and a sense of growing after being exposed to what you're going to be hearing today. We want people to grow. We want people to feel that I've learned something today. There may be others who would like to share this with their friends and so on. But the main important thing, this is really a moment of insight and growth and development. And you know, when I grew up, I never saw anyone who was a specialist in logistics or supply chain management. Those things were things that I knew. We know a bit about doctors and lawyers, but those are but the specialization, for example, of injury specialization, I'd never seen anyone doing that well. So as particularly as Black people, we're learning and we're developing as the times are going forward. And so I've never heard of some of this, let alone seeing one. And I'm sure there's a young person out there who has never seen anyone, who has never heard of this. And so today we are bringing such people. There were no doctors that specialized in these kinds of things, let alone people that we see and know. And I'm sure, and those people that are there at home who still don't know about these careers today, they will learn something. The purpose really of this program is to inspire. It is to inform and to motivate, you know, people, especially young people, young Black people who have never been exposed to some of these things that we are now exposed to, who still do not know these careers, who still do not know what they must do, or who are not sure about which way to go, but who feel that there's something that they need to know. And the purpose really is to bring people like our guests to come and share their own personal experience, to share their own expertise, and to inspire those people. And also to inspire with the idea that with God on your side, with effort, with hard work, and networks of other people and support of other people, there is really nothing that's impossible. As long as you and I are breathing and are alive, we can still make it. I'm therefore extremely privileged to host our two guests today. Please help me to welcome Usis Keneiloe. All right, I can see that she just stepped off. Let me, Usis Keneiloe Sibisi, a logistics and supply chain specialist, a board member at Enco Group Limited. I met Usis Keneiloe. We are both advancing our studies in coaching at the UCT Graduate School of Business, the Center of Coaching there. And we had a chat, and I felt that chat was really interesting. And I said to her, look, I'll come to you, and then we can talk about coming and bringing her onto this platform for people to really get to know Usis Keneiloe. We cannot afford to have people that have so much, that have learned so much over the years, that have learned so much in various business skills, to just keep those skills. We need to expose and make sure that others can learn from that. So welcome, Usis Keneiloe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay,
I'm
great.
looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, the other guest is Dr. Lubabalo Noconjo. We've known each other for a number of years now. We were in Cape Town, we were in the same church at Langa. And so we used to chat a bit with him. He is a very dedicated doctor, and he's going to tell us about all of that. Highly qualified man. And he, in fact, when I looked at his qualifications, I couldn't even say that, you know. But the key thing is that out of all those qualifications, he is now a specialist in spine injury, in spine injuries or spine surgery. So let me put it like that. And it's a very critical and I'm sure rare skill for people who get into all sorts of spine problems. And we are growing now. We've got parents, we've got people that get injured. We need to know how does that happen. So welcome, Luba, and please say hi to our viewers.
Thanks, Prabhat, for welcoming me, and good afternoon to everyone who is in this platform. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Siabulela, for joining us today. So we will learn, as I said, more about what they are doing. We brought them here on purpose with two different skill sets, because I think it appeals to different audiences. There might be people who are more interested in this or the other, but I think the most important thing is that we're all here. I can see people are coming in. Nagunol Tando, Nola, welcome Nolu. I can see Ashna, welcome Ashna. Ashna is one of our colleagues at PPC at doing coaching together. It's really great to have you joining us today. Really appreciate it. And all those others that I've mentioned before and those that I cannot see yet, I'd really like to welcome Monez Nteke. I can see him on Facebook. I can see Inkabakuchi, Ubayanda Mkula, my daughter, Inkumanda Semkosini. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate all your time. Now, let's get into the meat of our discussion. Let's start off with the person behind the screen. Please share with us. Let's start with you, Sisi. Where did your journey start? You know, just tell us about where you were born, where you grew up, you know, your background, your early years of schooling, and just describe for us some key socioeconomic dynamics that you had to deal with as you grew up, and perhaps how they even shaped how you became who you are today.
Okay, so
I think you might be related to this Sibisi Sibisi. I can see.
Yes, I think he may be related to me. Yeah.
Something like that.
Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
So I was born in Johannesburg. Yeah. Well, I'm actually an East Rand girl. I just happened to be born in Johannesburg. I don't know why, but anyway, I was born in Johannesburg. And then I spent the first 3 years of my life in Guatemala in Springs. I was brought up because my mother went back to work after the 3 months. And so I was looked after by her umamnganwake, my maternal grandmother's sister.
Okay.
And so I spent the first 3 years of my life there. My parents were both teachers. And they decided when I was age 3 and my sister then was 6, that they did not want us to be educated in South Africa. So they left and took all their little girls and all their belongings and moved us to Botswana. So I spent my childhood in Botswana. From the age of 3 till 17, 18, thereabouts. So I did all my schooling in Botswana. And then after I finished, because they follow the British system there. So after I finished my O-levels, I then went to the UK to do my A-levels. Because at the time, it was during, obviously, the dark days of South Africa. So there were scholarships for South Africans to study abroad. So yes, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go abroad.
Okay, so what are O-level, what are A-level equivalent to? I mean, is it the grade?
So I would guess O-levels would be at the end of high school.
Okay, all right.
But in order to get into a university in the UK, you need A-levels. So it's a 2-year course, a school sort of continuing in high school in order to get into university.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you ended up in the UK, and how long did you stay there?
Too long. Too long. I was there for a very long time.
Okay. Okay.
And then I actually took a long route to get to, because I actually, for the longest of time, I actually did not know what I wanted to study. I think I'll be brave. One of the people on the line is a sibling of mine, but I think I'll put my neck out and say, of the 3 of us in the family, I was the one strongest in maths. And so my mother wanted me to do either accounting or become a computer programmer. But I was determined that I was going to do what I want to do, not what other people wanted me to do. But I didn't know what it is that I wanted to do. So it took a long time. So I started off by doing I did a certificate in business studies, and then I did a diploma in business studies. And then I came back, because by then my parents had come back to South Africa. So I came back and I worked at a reinsurance company for 2 years, and then decided, actually, no, South Africa is not for me. And I went back to the UK. And then I studied IT. I did a degree, an IT degree. And then when and one of the course options that we had in this IT degree was logistics. And up until that time, I'd never heard of logistics. So when I then finished my degree, I then decided I wanted to specialize. And that's when I decided to go the logistics route. Okay.
All right, we're gonna get back now. We're gonna get back there now. But you've taken us from your young age to where you were born to the place now where you now have a degree in IT and you're specializing in logistics. Luba, let's come to you. All right, tell us your story. Tell us your background. How did it all start for you?
Yes, Prophet. For me, of course, I was born and raised in Bizana. For those who may not know Bizana, it's a town in the Eastern Pondoland. So we probably the last town just before you cross to KwaZulu-Natal is next to Port Edward.
Port Edward, yes.
In that area, yes. So yes, I was born and raised there. Born by Mrs. and Mr. Noconjo. Who, of course, my mother is late now. My father is still alive. We were actually 5 siblings from them, and I'm the second eldest of my family. Yes. So, of course, I attended my primary school there in a school called Zamokushe Junior Secondary School, which was actually not far from home. It was actually a walking distance. And up to, I think at the time, Standard 7, And then, of course, I went to do high school at Keneiloe Junior Secondary School, Senior Secondary School, sorry, which is one of our... Manfred, that's correct.
Manfred.
Yeah, which is one of our school, institutions in the Seventh-day Adventist community. Yeah.
That's a Quildan.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was actually, I enjoyed my time there. It was very nice to be there. And in fact, I think it saved me from quite a number of things, because I remember at the time when I joined them, it was in an era in my life when some of my friends who were close to me, who were of course not Adventist at the time, started to drink, smoke, and so on. So, with peer pressure, I might have ended there, but unfortunately, I escaped that because I went to Keneiloe. So I stayed there until I finished my matric. And of course, after matric, I then went on to university. At the time, it was called University of University of Durban. Yes.
Oh, Durban, okay.
At the time. And now it's called University of KwaZulu Natal. Spent my time there doing physiotherapy for about 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, in terms of home socioeconomic, it wasn't that bad because, as a Keneiloe, my parents were both teachers at the time, and so they could provide,
okay,
what we needed at the time. And not just for us, but for the greater family. As you will know that us as Africans, not just your nuclear family, but you've got extended family to look after. So I think that they did that very well. So socioeconomically, I think we were fine.
Okay. All right, it's interesting. I mean, we've got a rural boy and a town girl. So, and that experience is going to come in handy because there are different challenges that face those different urban settings and urban dynamics or rural dynamics. And it's amazing that you managed to go through. So you did at university, you did physiotherapy, which is about what? Can you just describe that briefly?
Yes, so I did that for about 4 years. Essentially, physiotherapy is one of the allied health sciences. It deals with musculoskeletal problems. It's, in other words, it's physical therapy. It's a rehabilitation post injuries or illnesses that relates to musculoskeletal problems. So I did that for about 4 years at the time, and I then finished it and went to Port Elizabeth at Livingston Hospital, where I was employed as a physiotherapist. But during that era as well, I then opened a private practice. You might know in Motherwell, NU5. So that's where I opened my private practice, which I ran from. And in fact, at Livingston, I worked from about 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and I started my private practice from about 4:30 to 8 at night. It was a bit of a hard work, at the time.
Wow.
Especially that, at the time I didn't have a car, so I had to take a taxi straight from hospital. It's quite a distance. But I did that for about 3 years. And then I think I sort of got a little bit bored, and I needed new challenges. And then I decided to apply to do medicine. In fact, medicine was my first choice after high school. And then, of course, to get into medicine is highly competitive. And of course, I couldn't get in the first time. So I settled for my second choice, which was physiotherapy. So this time around, I was successful in applying my applications, and then I went to do medicine at the University of KwaZulu Natal. I stayed there for about 5 years. I finished 2010, I think. Yeah, and then
You're doing it full time.
Full time, yes. In fact, what happened is when I decided to leave physiotherapy and my private practice, I sold everything I had to pursue this dream. It was actually quite tough because, I mean, often like any other student, you run out of money, run out of basics and all that, but in any way, yes, I did full time, and then I finished in 2010, and then went on to do internship as a now newly qualified medical doctor at Tata or Nelson Mandela Academic Hospital, which I think it's probably one of the greatest decisions I've made in life to go there. In a sense that most of what I know now, it started there. And I mean, there were a lot of people who gave me opportunities, to do what I do now, and of which, at that level, I wasn't supposed to be doing that, and just as
okay,
yeah, so
okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we up to par. So so that I can bring on Sis Keneiloe and I to just come and tell us, because it's amazing, because what I learned from now already is that there was a point where you were not sure yet as to which way to go, and also Luba, you sort of started or did something that you really was not your first choice, but ultimately you landed where you go. So even if there's someone out there who feels that, it's not what I want to do, but what I'm hearing is that ultimately anyone can still fulfill their dreams, but sometimes you need to take a detour. Sis Keneiloe, let's come back to you. You have now done your IT, and you've done your specialization in logistics. What sparked your interest in this field that you started? Is it something in your growth? Did you know people in this sector, or is it something that happened as you studied? What sparked your interest in this field?
It's something I stumbled upon. I didn't, up until that point, know anybody. I hadn't met anybody who'd done logistics. So it's just something that I stumbled upon, as I said, as part of my IT. It was one of those, those courses that get thrown in order to get your grades. But actually then sparked an interest. Because I felt that my IT degree was very generalist. So I decided I wanted to hone in on something and specialize in something. And so logistics was the way I decided to go.
Okay. And what is logistics? And just if you can break it down for us, when we hear logistics and supply chain management, procurement, and all those, can you just break them down briefly for us so that people who are there at home listening can understand what? So when you studied logistics and all of that, what is it? What do they do, in companies or government?
Okay. So logistics is a part of supply chain management.
Okay.
However, over the years, the two things are used interchangeably.
Okay.
Just as procurement and supply chain management are sometimes used interchangeably. But, in logistics, we talk about the 7 R's. So logistics basically is about getting the right product to the right customer in the right condition at the right time, and at the right cost.
Okay.
And logistics can actually be confined within a company, whereas supply chain management is a global network. So logistics is about your getting a product or raw material into a company. So which is your inbound logistics, and getting it, and storing it, and then getting it out, which is your outbound logistics, to the end user.
Okay.
So that basically is logistics.
Okay, all right. And then supply chain, if you could just, so in terms of logistics, are you talking about transportation, shipping, and all those kinds of things?
That is, yes. So it's about the transportation, storage of items within a company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas
with supply chain management, it's a global. Supply chain management encompasses a whole host of other processes, which include procurement, logistics, and a whole host of other, planning, sourcing, manufacturing. That's all part of your supply chain management. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if, for example, you are working for this big corporate that supplies, or let's say fruit and vegetables, can you apply? Can you just describe in that setup the process of supply chain, just as an example? Okay, what does a supply chain specialist or manager do in that instance?
If we look at a very simplified...
Are you there?
Hello? You froze.
I lost you a bit there.
Okay. So I was saying, if we look at a very basic supply chain and involve just 3 entities, being a supplier, a producer, and a customer. Okay. What flows between those 3 entities is the physical movement of material from supplier to producer, and producer to the customer. There's also the flow of cash from the customer backwards, or all the way back to the supplier. There's also the flow back and forth of information along that chain from the supplier from the supplier to the customer. And then finally, there's the flow of the reverse logistics of unwanted goods or goods that are rejects back from the customer backwards.
Yes.
That is a basic supply chain. So you can imagine that if you replicate that along many, throughout many companies, that's is the full supply chain.
Okay.
So just breaking it down, making it as simple as possible.
Yes, I like that, because I want someone who's at home to really go away understanding what we are talking about when we're talking about this thing called supply chain, so that the person can have a vivid picture. And those who are aspiring to this kind of career, they can understand such a big scope of this thing could be. All right. Okay, Luba, let's come to you now. Let's come to you. You are in Umtata at the Nelson Mandela Hospital there, and you were saying that was a great decision that you made, and you were still explaining why was that, and why was that important. And secondly, what else did you add in your knowledge now? Because you were trained in physiotherapy, muscular and bone structure, but what else did you add now when you did this extended 5-year program? And by the way, did you have family when you had to sell everything and move to do study full time?
Yeah, thanks, Prophet. No, look, I mean, at the time, I didn't have family.
Okay.
So
Right.
I was still single, but
All
of
right.
course, my wife, who was my girlfriend then, was in the picture, and in
Okay.
fact, the interesting thing was that at the time, we once had this conversation with her, um, about what I want to do in life, and how I picture myself in life. And so I went on to, to tell her, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. She listened attentively, and in the end, and she says, "Okay, now I hear you, but where do I fit in all this picture?" She didn't fit anywhere. But look, I mean,
She's a wise lady.
but yeah, so after I was at Mtata, and I was saying it was one of the best decisions in a sense that the people who were mentors at the time, you'll understand that when you are an intern doctor, you allowed to work under supervision. So there's certain things that you cannot do simply because you are not experienced enough. And so whatever that you do, there must be someone next to you showing you how to do it, and so on. But
Yeah.
what was different with me is that the people who trained me there, it gave me a lot of space to work independently, in a sense that one of the requirements in the departments where I worked in, which was a department of obstetrics and gynecology, which is essentially women's health. One of the requirements by the health professional councils is that one must observe or do under supervision 10 cesarean sections, and then you would have passed that block. And indeed, I did that. But over and above that, I went on to do 38 cesarean sections independently, without having someone watching me over my shoulder. And all those surgeries were successful, no complications, and which is something very rare to be done by any doctor at my level at that time. And of course, I did a lot of operations, which include amputations and opening the abdomens and all that, which again were not done by any of the doctors at my level at the time. And so, hence, I'm saying, it was one of the best decisions, because I then grew in the field of surgery from then. So I then finished in 2012 at Nelson Mandela Academic Hospital, and then I went on to do a community service in East London, which is a hospital called Frere Hospital. I then joined Department of General Surgery, which at the time was, I think the head of the department at the time was Professor Machoba. Unfortunately, he's now late, may his soul rest in peace. A very nice guy, gentleman, always ready to teach at any time, never complained. And he actually, gave me quite a lot of support in that field. And in fact, quite early on, I again became quite independent, in operation, in some of the operations at the time, under his watch, of course. And I grew, my skill, significantly from there. So when I was there, that must have been in 2013. I then, because already I knew what I wanted to do, which was actually orthopedic surgery and not general surgery. I then wrote what you call primary exams in, orthopedic surgery, which I passed at the time. And then, of course, went on to do, to become a medical officer, again in Kumbu, in a hospital called Nesenite. And then, but it was only a short stint there. And then I moved to Potchefstroom, where now I joined the Department of Orthopedic Surgery, to start or to begin my specialization. But of course, I was not in a formal.
What is orthopedics?
So
what is orthopedics?
Orthopedic surgery, essentially, again, it is a branch of medicine which, again, deals with injuries or diseases that affects musculoskeletal system. But you are more of a surgeon rather than a physician. So your main job is to operate, you know.
Okay.
So I stayed there for about a year. And thereafter, I applied in Cape Town to do a formal training, what you call a registrarship in orthopedic surgery, which is a very competitive space. And in fact, when I applied at the time, we were probably about 21 or so. And I think only 2 of us made it, to that group, which is quite a nice thing, you know.
Wow.
And 2015,
wow. Sure.
And then 2015, I then joined them in Cape Town. Not fully in the program, because for about 2 years you join, you work in the peripheral hospital. It's sort of an apprenticeship, probably for them to see if you are going to be able to be a registrar, something like that, you know. So I did that for 2 years at Mitchell's Plain Hospital as well as New Somerset Hospital. Again, a very good experience. I enjoyed it. And then only in 2017, then I joined the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at UCT. Again, very difficult, but enjoyable, I must say. Difficult in the sense that, it required a lot of sacrifice, because especially if you have family, it's not an easy thing to do, because most of the time your family doesn't see you. They see you sometimes, over the weekends. And so that requires a high level of sacrifice, I must say. The family suffers in that period.
Okay.
And then of course, I finished 2020, I think in August, and then that's when I started to super specialize in spine surgery.
Okay, wow. Super specialization, it's another term. We're going to come back to it just now. See, let's come back to you. I mean, when I'm listening to Dr. Luba, he's talking about a number of supportive people that have been there to provide him guidance, to lead him, to make him take the initiative. And for you, where did that happen for you? Or where did you get that? Or did you at all get that? Or did you struggle on your own? What challenges did you face, and how did you meet those challenges? Did you have supportive system behind you as you were charting your way into your career?
My parents were always supportive. So I was very lucky in that we had very, very supportive parents.
Yes.
The only thing though is that if you committed to something, then you then needed to come to the party and give it your all.
Yes.
And over the years, I must say, I've had supportive people within the workspace. I have had supportive friends, and luckily enough, I've got a very supportive husband.
All right.
So yeah, I have had very good support throughout my career. And, I think one of the people who I cherish, whose friendship and direction, I suppose I cherish, was one of my bosses, who he and I got along very well, but he didn't get along with a lot of people because he was a no-nonsense kind of person, sometimes actually quite unreasonable. But he and I enjoyed the most amazing relationship with him. And Afrikaner, who had served in the army in Namibia. So he shared stories with me about what it did to him as a person. And, you know, but when it came to, even today, if I were to call him and say, hey, I either need a job or I need a reference or whatever, he will jump. So I've enjoyed the support and encouragement from such people in my life.
Okay, all right. Now I want us to move to the role of, you know, South Africa is very, is coming from a very bad background. The role of supply chain, the kind of work that you did, governance in that sense, the role of that in the transformation of the country. I mean, you may have seen it over the years. You know, I don't know, you haven't mentioned some of the places where you worked, but you may have seen over the years that there was a point where that space was occupied predominantly by sort of white people. But, you know, what role have you seen over the years being played in that space to change the dynamics of the country?
Sure. I worked at UTI, which is now called DSV. And it was a very white male dominated company. And I think in many ways it still is. There'd be the odd Keneiloe who comes and the odd so-and-so who comes in, and not very many of us actually. Okay, I sat at Exco. There's another colleague of mine also called Lubabalo actually, who also sat there, and Utulani. So I think there were about just 3 of us at the top. And even though the company itself had a program to actually push through and bring through young managers, they just never actually managed to climb up the ladder. And as a result, I think the program fell flat and all these young people actually ended up leaving. So it is still very, very, very male dominated. And it's also, especially in the courier transport business, it's very rough. It's very, very rough. So the language that is used, you know, all that sort of the way people are treated, you need to be thick-skinned in order to survive in that sort of environment. And I don't know if it will ever change. I hope it does. And I think the only way it probably will do if we get, for instance, a whole lot more females into such environments. Yeah. But as to whether it's changing or not, I must say I have moved on, so I don't know what the logistics and courier and transporting companies transformation has been over the years, because I then moved to financial services and did cleaner work, so to speak, and moved away from oil and trucks and those sorts of things.
Just before we move from there, I'm going to come to you, Luba, now. I just want us just to just describe in brief terms, what sort of career opportunities are there then within that, and what, you know, do people need to have does everybody have to have done an IT degree to operate in that space of logistics, supply chain governance, and so on? What opportunities are there?
I think there are lots of opportunities. I mean, there are opportunities in procurement.
Yeah.
Opportunities in manufacturing. opportunities in warehousing. And I think that's an area that a lot of Black people actually haven't discovered. But there's a lot of opportunities in warehousing and warehousing management. Transport and transport management. Inventory management. So there's a whole host of other areas within this whole supply chain management that one can tap into. And you don't need, I mean, you Jay, for instance, and UNISA, I think, also run a course in logistics management. And I think you only need a matric to pass matric in order to register for the diploma course in logistic management at UJ. So no, people don't need to go through this long route that I that I followed. You can just go directly and study logistics. Yeah.
All right. So if there's anyone there who's interested in this, you don't have to have an IT degree. You can do your own investigation and you can make it in that space. Luba, let's come to you. I mean, I remember I had to do an operation there at UCT Academic Hospital or UCT Private Hospital. And I was in the ICU and I heard I was woken up by this rattle at night where this old white man who had been in a drunk, he was driving drunk and then he got into an accident. And so now they were asking, I think he was asked not to be treated by a Black woman doctor. And he was making a huge ruckus. How have you experienced that kind of stuff over the years? In that, how is that industry changing, particularly the surgery, kind of things? Do people trust that there are Black, qualified, experience with all the number of operations that you've did, who are not bothered by the color of your skin, or do we still have those challenges as I experienced on that day?
Yes, Prophet. Look, I think it's similar to what this Keneiloe said. In a sense that in orthopedic surgery or in spine surgery in general, or even in the field of surgery in general, it used to be dominated by white males for a very, very long time. And actually even white females, they actually find it difficult to enter into that space, let alone to have patients once they've entered into the space. So it's been like that, for quite a number of years. But and of course, it has started to change slowly. In a sense that now we see quite a number of surgeons in general who are Blacks, who are Black, with patients who are white. But I must say that indeed there is still quite a lot of resistance, in particular from the white, white people, to be treated by any Black specialists, because of a stereotype that Blacks may not know much or they are not safe under their hands, which is actually not true. So yes, there is that. And of course, I have, like any other Black doctor, experienced that. And of course, when it happens, it's not a nice feeling, but we have learned not to internalize things, not to take things, personally, and just do the work as you go along. And in fact, one of my experiences is that one day I was running a clinic, and of course I was the only senior person in that hospital. So this guy comes and is injured and needs to be taken to theater, and then of course he gets seen initially by one of the junior guys, and he sees him, he assesses him, and of course he then comes to me to discuss as to what needs to be done. And of course, I formulate a plan. And as I was the senior surgeon at the time, and so like any other patient that we need to operate on, we need to take a consent as to what we're going to do, and he must agree to that. So I went through that process, but you could see the resistance, that he was giving me. And then in fact, he did say that he asked me who's going to be operating on him. And I said, it's me. And he said, no, why can't this other doctor not operate on me? So such things happen. And of course, when he realized that I was actually the only person who could perform, surgery, he was very disappointed. But of course, surgery went well. He had no choice. Otherwise, probably it works well for those who have, an ability to access private, healthcare. But of course, if you can't, access private healthcare, then they have to be treated by whoever is available at the time.
At that time,
course,
yeah.
But now it is slowly changing.
Okay.
In a sense that, in particular, in my department where I'm at, we see quite a number of Black surgeons who are qualifying, and as well as Black females who are becoming specialists, and most of them, they do have white patients. So it is changing. It's changing, yeah.
Okay,
that's correct. Yeah.
Now, Luba, I want to come to this question of I think in the medical space there's also a supply chain as well that happens. It could be, the buying of medicine, the buying of syringes, or all of that kind of stuff, or even a supply chain of careers. So let's look at, for a business person, who wants to plug into that supply chain, I may have been putting you on the spot here, but what are opportunities for a business person who wants to supply things, who wants to provide transport, who wants to do cleaning? But also on the side of the people who may want careers, you don't have to mention all of them, but some of your thoughts around that. And then, Sis Keneiloe, I've got a question here from Yongamela Manene. Would you say, hi, Pat, can you ask Mrs. Sibisi what is her view on the level of our country to achieve a smooth operations in line with international best practice? I think you will be in a better position to know that language. But I think Youngs is also maybe in that space. I don't know. But let's come back to you, Luba.
Sure, Brapet. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not really, probably the right person for that kind. But I do know that some people who want to venture into that space. In fact, most of what we use in hospital is supplied, through a tender process now. So there's in fact, where I work, because I work with, implants, so most of the companies that we use are, companies who have been selected from a tender process. So I think anyone who, want to venture into that space, can follow the regulations of tender processing, which of course, I don't know much about. But certainly, in the field, in the medical field of orthopedic surgery or spine surgery, there are a number of opportunities, for those who are, wanting to venture into that space. You can either work in public or in private sector. I think there is still quite a number of spaces available there. Of course, it's quite a very competitive space. You have to fight for it. But of course, if you stick long enough, you will make it in that space. And in fact, I do think that, in medicine in general, one shouldn't look at it as, as a way to get rich, because you'll be disappointed, very disappointed. I don't think it's a space for people who want to become rich, in a sense. Rather than it is a space for people who are willing to sacrifice part of their life, and part of their family's life, and so on. I've not really met a single surgeon or a medical specialist who is rich in a sense. All of them, whatever that they have, you physically work hard for it, and most of the time you don't get to enjoy what you have earned, because most of the time you are at work, you are in hospital during the week and over the weekends. So in that sense, but also, I do, and this is my own personal opinion, that when you mix medical care and start to view it as some form of a business, you start to make a lot of mistakes, in a sense that when you see people, you see money, you don't see, people who need to be helped, and
Yes.
then the drive, stop becoming some sort of, a healthcare, but, you just see money, and that then becomes a drive, and you'll make a lot of mistakes. And of course, I've seen many people who think like that, and most of them, they do not last because they commit so many mistakes.
Yeah.
But
and,
yes,
and there are also high risks in terms of being sued and taken to court and all those kinds of things.
Yes, certainly. In particular, in what I do at the moment in spine surgery, is a very, very risky operations that I do. I mean, there's a real chance of paralyzing or killing someone every time you operate on them, and it's not just a theoretical risk; it is a risk that is there. I know that personally, every time when I have to operate on someone, like tomorrow I'm operating on someone in someone's spine, and whenever you are there, your adrenaline levels are always high, because you don't know what will happen, and you probably pray more than 10 times, before you finish the operation, because anything can happen. And unfortunately, once you paralyze someone, really it's a problem, so yes, there is quite a number of litigations because of that. Exactly.
Okay. But also, I'm sure there must be a sense of fulfillment in this field as well. But hearing what you're saying now, Luba, you spent a big chunk of your time learning. Up until last year, you've learned a lot. So there must have been something that was really driving that sense of achievement, that sense of fulfillment. What is that? Can you describe that? Notwithstanding all the risks, but there must be something that's really driving you. What is that drive that makes you want to grow in this field up until to where you are now sort of super specializing in this area?
Yeah, look, I do think that probably it's a personality, that I have, a personality that I want to know more and more and more. It just doesn't end. But also, when you meet different people or patients, and you have problems that you cannot solve, it sort of drives you to acquire more knowledge, every day. And I think then that becomes a drive. But also, to be able to help someone. And let me make maybe one example. One day I worked in one of the hospital called Red Cross. It is a children's hospital. And I saw probably a 6-7-year-old boy was probably coming for the third or fourth time in hospital with a back problem, And of course, the story was that he fell, and from then he started to have this excruciating pain from his lower part of the spine. And so he kept coming, and of course, being examined by, different doctors and so on. And no one could pinpoint what is his problem, but he continued to have pain, significant amount of pain. And so I came on duty on that weekend, and I saw this boy and really quite in pain, and I read all the notes and what other people have done and so on. I examined myself. I couldn't find any reason of his pain, but I decided to keep him in hospital, at least on medication that will reduce, the level of his pain and so on. And that was on Friday, and then on Saturday, it was on Sabbath, yes. I then went back in the morning to do water runs and so on, and I saw him in a lot of pain, sweating, and with high temperatures and so on, Again, I examined him, I couldn't find any problems. I went home, and I remember I got home in the afternoon, and I think my wife and the kids were back from church at the time. And then we had lunch. Everyone was happy, a happy mood. But inside, I wasn't happy because that boy looked exactly like my children, same age groups. And I'm thinking to myself, here am I, I'm happy. There's a child out there who is in pain. I don't know what is wrong with him. Can it be so hard that I cannot help him? My mood just changed there and then, and I went back to Red Cross Hospital.
Sure.
And I started to examine this boy from head to toe, And now one of the examinations that we do, a very uncomfortable examination, is to put our finger in the anus of someone to look for problems there. And this has been done for about 2 times, I think 3 times on this boy, and no one could find problems. And I said to the mother, listen, mommy, I'm going to do this examination. I know it's uncomfortable for the boy. It has been done 3 times already, but I am going to do it again just to satisfy myself. And then I did that, with God's grace. Up high in his rectum, I could feel something soft that is not supposed to be there. And every time I sort of pressed on it, he sort of jumped in pain. And there and there, I became very teary and prayerful to God. And I said, thank you, Lord, because now we know what we're dealing with. And then, I knew that we have solved this boy's problem. Then we arranged scans, MRIs and all that, which were done, on the agent basis. And indeed, on the MRI, we saw quite a huge, what you call pre-sacral abscess. So he had an abscess behind his sacrum. We then arranged theater at the time, and he went to theater. He was trained successfully. A lot of pus came in, and then of course I left the hospital on a Monday. Actually, on a Tuesday, as I walked in hospital, I met his mother. They were actually going out being discharged, and I could hardly recognize the boy, because he was a totally different person.
Wow.
His mother came to me, hugged me firmly, and I'm like, what is this? And she said, can you remember my boy? Can you see my boy? And I took a closer look at him. I then realized it is this boy that we helped. What I'm trying to say is, it is that drives us, the want to help people and sacrifice our own time, our own happiness just for that. And it can't be compared to anything else.
Sure. Wow, that's a powerful story, man. It actually is amazing. In fact, I can see that Uzanele Metromakulu is saying, I didn't know your specialty. My dad had to change his prosthetic leg several times, but still has persistent pains in his waistline. There are so many people. We're going to come to you now, Sisi, but I just want to acknowledge the people that I can see here. Zanele, Duduzi, Dube, Tando Melane, Pumla Msimang, Yongamela, Nangu Nwansi, Auntanegas. Welcome, Skumbuzo Baliso, welcome, Fundiswam, Tochelo Libumbe, Pikoli, hello, Sisi, and Normalizo Jobeka, Nangu Nim Vaha, Asipum, Aspukolo Mputa. Thank you so much for joining. There are so many people that are interested in these discussions that we are having here. Vukile Mtubeki, Zama is here, and others, Caroline, and so on. So people are quite interested in what we are saying here. It's amazing. Let's come back to you. When we come back to you, Luba, please come back to this question. If you may have a comment there, maybe it may be a more specific case. You may not have all the issues, but feel free to make general comments if you want. So you had the question from, how is the country doing in these areas in terms of meeting international benchmarks? And I've heard that in the government, there was even a huge procurement policy or position in the department, because there's a lot of corruption in this area, lots of tendering that are taking place. Can you just make general comments on those issues and how our country is faring in this area?
I think we've got a mixed bag. You know, a few years ago, I went and visited the Merck plant in East London.
Yes.
And I was blown away by watching a vehicle being assembled right in front of my eyes. And they were using a methodology called just in time.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, there's a conveyor belt there, and this conveyor belt is not full of material. It brings enough for that vehicle at the time when it's needed. And this is right here at home in South Africa. You know, so in that sense, I think we are way up there with best practice and the rest of the world. However, you then get a situation now in the middle of this pandemic that we're dealing with, and there is a procurement of vaccines.
Yes.
And you then say to yourself, did we do our homework? Did we check? Did we tick all the boxes in terms of acquisition, in terms of your procurement? The vaccines get here. I mean, okay, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because now other people have decided they are not using those vaccines. But we gained, oh, basically because we bungled. We got it wrong. We did not check the expiry date. We did not check, Uguti, do we have facilities, warehousing facilities that are able to cater for the temperatures that are required by that vaccine. So in terms of our supply chain management, we got it completely wrong. We failed completely.
Sure.
And then, of course, you know, transportation, moving stuff in South Africa is a problem. Because we don't have our railway network is not working, so we are dependent on road.
On road, yes, road freight.
On road freight. So.
And there's banning of trucks and all of those kinds of things going on as well.
All those things that are happening. So that's why I say we've got a mixed bag in terms of being globally competitive. So in some respects, yes, we are up there, like as I described in this manufacturing plant. However, in other areas, we are way behind. You know, when I was still studying many years ago, we had a case study of Ipempas.
Okay. Zabanduan.
Yes.
Zabanduan. Okay.
Yeah. And Tesco's, I think it was at the time. Tesco's was ordering directly from the manufacturer and cut out the middleman. And their replenishment requirements were being communicated directly to the manufacturer. So at the point of sale, as these things are being scanned out to the consumer, that message is being relayed back to the manufacturer to say our stocks are coming down, and when it reaches their a replenishment level, the replenishment levels, then stock order levels, then the manufacturer knows that it's time to replenish.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we are there yet.
And it sounds as if for both sectors, the medical industry as well as just the general business, there are differences in terms of performance between the private sector and the public sector. But Sisi, you moved on, and then you were in the financial back, but you also moved on to serving on boards. Is that where you are now? In other words, you're no longer practicing at a practical level, but you are now in boards. Just tell us about how that happened. What does it mean to play a role in governance? I mean, you are the board member in ACO, on ACA Group Limited. Tell us about that experience. I know, I mean, there's a cousin of ours who says, you know, she's doing her MBA and she's one of the senior managers at the place. She says, I want to be in governance. I want to go to the boards and so on. So, but I said to her, listen, it might take a couple of years for you to do that. So just tell us about that experience or how it started for you.
Yeah, so when did it start? I was actually still working.
Okay.
And I got approached by this ex-boss of mine that I was talking about earlier. And he asked me if I could be a trustee on one of their, on their empowerment trust.
Okay.
Yes, a UTI. So that was my first exposure to sitting in that sort of a forum.
Governance.
Yes. So I still I'm still a trustee on their empowerment, and basically what they do is give scholarships to deserving Black kids.
Okay.
So that's the one. And then a few years later, somebody stepped down off the board of UTI. And so I was asked if I would mind being considered for sitting on the board. And of course, what stood me in good stead there was the fact that I had experience. I had company knowledge. I knew the company. I understood the business.
The business model.
Yeah. So I then sat on the board, and then a few months later, then I was approached by the MD of Anchor Capital to say, would I mind sitting on their board? And that process is a bit hair-raising because you then need to they need to make a SENS announcement on the JSE, and I'm thinking, we're moving up in the world. The JSE now knows about me.
Wow! So, that's good.
But it has been, because now this is asset management and investments of people's money. It's a area that was completely new to. And I mean, I've been on that board now for 2 years, but I'm still learning.
Okay.
But there is the operational and stuff that they do and will report to us, and it sometimes is Greek to me. But then there is the day-to-day proper running of the company, which we as board members are gatekeepers and need to make sure that whatever decisions are made are in the interest of, one, the survival of the company, and secondly, the interests of the shareholders of the company. So that really has been
Okay.
what sitting on the board has been for me. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And I know that there's a lot of training that goes into that as well. But
No,
there's also a lot of,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I needed to attend the course at the Institute of Directors, in order. Yeah. In order for me to be allowed to sit on the board.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We're moving to you. I'm just looking at the time. It's running away. So I don't want to keep you longer than necessary. But I've got a question here for you, Luba, from Munez Ntleki, Utibashe. Please help us to explain the role of the Health Professional Council of South Africa to you as medical practitioners and to us as the public. And I think it's an important question, this one, but also, Luba, if you can just talk to us about, then there's a person who's sitting out there who's saying, I want to be where Lubabalo is. I want to do the kind of things that they do. How should they prepare themselves? What sort of courses? I take it they have to do maths and physical science and things like that. If you can just take us to that basic after answering this question. In fact, Ma'am Keneiloe Uyongamela came back and she said, wow, she's right. She's got it right in relation to the math plant. Thanks, Pat. So there are a number of people that are watching that have joined us also. Mfundisi Uzamekile Dichwa, Nozuko, thank you so much for joining. And so let's get to you now, Luba, to answer those questions. Can you unmute your device there?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll start, of course, by the HPCSA question. So I think essentially, HPCSA is I would say it's a statutory body, really, which regulates the healthcare industry in South Africa in general. In other words, they help health professionals it helps to guide health professionals, and also not only to guide us, but also to protect you as public, from us, Essentially what that means, they make sure, firstly, that we receive the right training, and that by the time we finish the training, we are competent to go out there and execute or, deal with your medical problems. And in the process of dealing with the medical problems, they also make sure that, whatever mistake that we do, it gets investigated, and to make sure that we are not negligent, And that is why you'll hear cases of people who are being sued by the public. People complain to the Health Professional Council, and that get investigated and so on. And of course, if we are found to be negligent, in some cases we get, struck off the roll, which is a terrible thing to happen to anyone. But essentially, that body is there for that,
Okay.
But also moving on to the last question, I think for a young person who's there, especially those who are still in matric, or who are still to write their matric. Look, I think it starts off by knowing who you are first, and what do you want to achieve in life? What makes you happy? What kind of life you want to live, as a person. And once you've done that, and then of course you choose the right subject. I think today they choose, I think it's life orientation, which is physics and mathematics. Which is physics and biology, and of course mathematics.
Life sciences.
Life sciences, yes. So you've got to choose that,
yeah.
and do very well in that. It's not easy. It's a hard work. And then if I can say, in my time, I hated maths, but at the same time, I knew that maths stands between me and what I want to become. So I had to know it, uncomfortable as it was at the time. I just had to go through it. and pass it. So I'll say, get your subjects, correctly, and then work hard, work every day to achieve what you need to do, and also, if, during school vacations, you can also visit hospitals and ask to be attached in any medical department and just to see what we do, and that will sort of, boost what we have in mind already, just to channel your thoughts and directions, But also, I think probably more importantly for me, and this is what I did personally, after passing my matric, I sat down, I had a thorough, clear conversation with God as to what I want to do with my life. And really, I didn't even close my eyes to pray. It was like I'm talking to my friend. And I said, Lord, I want to do this. But if for any reason you don't see it fit according to your wisdom, please advise. But this is what I want to do with my life. And from then on, I went on to work very hard. I remember when I was in medicine, finally, that must have been 2010, I got very, very sick. In fact, I had TB. It almost killed me. And in fact, when we were busy preparing for the exams, I got an email from the dean of medical school who suggested that I must defer the exams, just to allow this period to be, so that I can be healed at least. And, when I received that email, I didn't even think twice. I said no to myself, essentially because, and again, I went back to, to the Lord. And then again, I didn't close my eyes. I was just talking to a friend. I said, Lord, me and you know that from day one, when I set my foot in this university, I worked hard up until this moment. Now, I don't see it that, I'm not going to sit for the exams. I'm asking you, to remind me of everything that I have learned from day one up to now. And indeed, I went on to write the exams without actually studying that much because I was very, very sick. And I did very well, not just well, but really, really well. I got medals and all that. And I proceeded from there. So again, that was, a result of having worked hard throughout the years. So I would say from someone out there who wants to be anything in life, you must decide in your mind and stick to that decision, right? And never look back and work hard towards it. There will be failures, some, distraction along the way. It happens. I've never met a single person who is successful today who has not failed once or twice. But what makes them successful is that when they fail, they keep on moving. It's like they gain new strength. And I think that should be the attitude to anyone who wants to be something. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh man, that's powerful right there. Sisi, let's come to you now. We are fast approaching the end of our conversation. As we are doing that, I just want to read some of the messages. There's a message that came to you from Ashna. She says, Keneiloe, a powerful woman with a strong mind of her own. It comes through very, very strongly. When you were still young, you knew where you wanted to go, and you were prepared to take it slow, but you knew what you wanted to do, and you made it. And then Utotyelwa Libumbe Pikoli is saying to Dr. Luba, I would like to know if you are consulting privately, or does a person have to be referred by a doctor, or can they call or request your services? We'll come back to that. But Sisi, as we are wrapping up, for you, what can you say to a young person who really, was starting off life, or a young professional? How do you advise them as they navigate life? Because life is difficult. I mean, I was saying earlier on, you and I are doing an advanced coaching course. I mean, it means even now after you've done all of this work, you are still developing yourself, you are still investing in your skills. Can you just talk to someone out there and share with them some few lessons about how they can make it, how they can get to a point where they feel they have achieved their goals?
Sure. I don't know about, because now you're giving people impression of what I've made it. I haven't. I'm also still on my journey.
No one ever makes it there, but success is also the journey itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, for young people, the thing is to inform yourself, get information. Do your research, rely on people, older people who've been through life and their life journey. Suck as much information out of such people as you can. And once you have decided or come to a conclusion on which direction your life you want to follow, then you really must stick to it and follow your dream and work hard. I mean, as Udotela said, you really need to work hard. And if you may, yes, trip along the way, but the important thing is then not to sit there and wallow in whatever disappointments you may have suffered. Pick yourself up and move on. That's all part of growth. It's not just Ugutingi Toli Pepa University. It's the failures and what you learn out of those failures and how you pick yourself up and move on. And I think that is something that young people should hang on to and follow in order as they build their careers and their livelihood.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. We are wrapping up now. We are already 1 minute after 1:30, and I really enjoy the nuggets that you just shared now, because sometimes when people hear that Keneiloe Sibisi is sitting on a board of a company, it's as if this person is far. I cannot identify with them. When Luba is a doctor who specializes in injury or back injury, whatever the case may be. I mean, people do not understand that you are just like everyone. You grew up in the similar conditions, but it was basic values like hard work. Lubabalo is very spiritual. You can sense that he's talking about prayer, honesty, and all those kind of stuff, and made it. So people out there must understand that the people that we see and admire are just normal like us, and they have made it or they are making it simply because of that. Luba, you want to, I'm going to give you a chance to wrap up and then come back to you, Sisi, to make your wrap up. But if you can start, Luba, with this question from Totyelwa Pikoli.
Okay, Totyelwa, I think, no, I'm not practicing privately at the moment. In fact, I'm still being trained as a spine surgeon at Grooterskloof/UCT, and my training ends end of August, of which thereafter I will probably work in a public institution for some time and then move to private. But I think anyone who needs spine services in private, if you're in Cape Town, there's a number of surgeons who are in private. At UCT private, there's Professor Dande. At Christian Barnard, there's Nick Kruger, and there's quite a number of people there.
Okay.
And of course, in the public hospital, we are there. At Grooterskloof, you will be assessed by or referred by either a GP or your local hospital. We will be there to assist. So at the moment I'm not, but of course I am available for advice, any sort of advice relating to surgery or spine surgery. I am available to give that advice.
Yeah. Just before you move on to wrap up, Luba, let me just take this time just to ask you. I mean, we're looking at preventative medicine here. How do we protect our spines? How do we prevent our spines? How do we look after spines? Because I mean, we're sitting the whole day these days, you know, especially now working from home and all of that. We're sitting in front of a computer on a Zoom. Just a few tips in terms of what do we do to protect our spine injury, apart from the obvious, trying to avoid accidents and all of that.
Yeah. So I think the basic thing will be to exercise in general. So, and of course, you know, and they are what you call core strengthening exercises. In other words, exercises that strengthen your abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor muscles, and that keeps, you know, your back, that balances your back and protects you from injury. But also, and of course, certain stretches can be done, but also for people who spend a lot of time in front of their computers and the desks, often the sitting position, what you call a back ergonomics, is not correct. So in our spines, or the lower spine has sort of what you call a lordosis, a curvature, and that curvature needs to be maintained. Some people, they sit, you know, stooped forward or skew on the side and stuff like that. Probably the right thing to do is to try and sit up straight and maintain that curvature. If you have a little pillow, you can put that little pillow at the back, you know, to maintain that curvature. But of course, you know, you can, after, you know, once you feel a strain, you can stand up and do some stretches and so on. But I do know that some people, they will need, you know, adjustment of chairs, you know, that you use when you are doing whatever that you're doing, and the adjustment, you know, of the chairs is to put, you know, some cushion to maintain that curve of the spine, but also the correct height, you know, of your table to your hands. It needs to be correct.
Okay.
So the occupational therapist usually advise on such things. But probably the other thing is for those people who may be slightly overweight, you know, it will help, you know, to decrease weight. Weight or obesity is one of the major problems that leads to back problems in general. And then, and of course, you know, most of the back problems, they result from a normal or natural wear and tear degeneration of the discs. And of course, there's nothing that one can do to prevent that. It's a natural process, but of course, exercise, you know, goes a long way to protect everyone from that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Luba. Thank you so much for that information. I think it's good information that we all need. Sisi, we are now wrapping up. Please, maybe last few words from you.
Well, first of all, just thank you for you know, this opportunity to speak about an area of my specialization. I hope the people who've been, the guests, attendees have managed to get, hopefully, a few nuggets of information, and they leave being a bit more knowledgeable about the area of logistics and supply chain. And, you know, I think as a country, we have an opportunity to actually compete with on the global stage. We just need to get rid of you know, the obvious obstacles that stand in our way. Else, you know, we are capable as any other global company. I mean, global country to be on that stage. Yeah.
All right. Let me just take this time to thank you both, Sis Keneiloe Sibisi, as well as Dr. Lubabalo Noconjo, for spending your afternoon with us here to empower the nation, to inform and to inspire us, to say that even areas that we never knew, we can still have people venturing into those areas. And I really want to thank you for the time that you took to engage with our viewers. And I'd like to encourage our viewers to subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Kulati Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. We bring in there a number of different kind of information, issues that are of interest to me. And these videos that we are now recording, or these chats that we're having, they appear on the Facebook, Patrick Kulati, at the Facebook page. But we all got to transfer that to the YouTube page, so that anyone, even in the years to come, who may want to know something, they can come back here and learn. The main important thing that we are trying to do here in these platforms is really to empower ourselves, is to encourage people to grow, and that's basically what we're here to do. And so, with that being said, I really want to thank you for spending this time with us, and I want to thank you, Sisinawe Luba, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again about other areas. If people want help here and there, I mean, we can advise them where they could go. But you know, this is a spark for people to do their own investigation and research. But thank you so much to all of you. And let me make sure if there are no messages that I'm missing. If there's any message that I've missed, please forgive me. I did not make it on purpose, but thank you. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Luba. Bulisekai. Thank you, the family that joined you, and to this day, I want to thank you so much, and the support that they are giving you to do the most important work that you are doing. We appreciate that.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, family. Thank you so much. Okay, Luba. Bulise kumamekai. Nabafana base right.
Abakhula nokho.
Bayakhula ne.
Abakhula, yes. Tell me, so Gauteng ngoku?
It's a Gauteng, yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you moved from Cape Town?
Moved from Cape Town completely.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Moved from Cape Town to be based in Joburg now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But I'm sure it's a small world to meet in person.
I'm sure. I mean, Utubulapa yesterday. So, you know, next time you come, just let us know.
Yeah, certainly.
When you have a moment, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sharp.
Okay, man. Thank you, ne?
Sure.
Take care. All right. Okay. All right. I can see that we still have Vukile. Thank you so much for joining. Ritabile, good to have you. Thanks for joining. And thanks to our Facebook colleagues. Liz Omgongo, welcome later.
Thank you, Pat. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, bye-bye.